right, good morning. So this is a quick little video tutorial about setting up a database and then starting to get into building your data tables. So the first thing for this example here, I'm literally just going to start with a blank desktop database here. I've already set where my files are going. So if this is your first time here, you may need to go ahead and set where in your documents that this is going here. But just like previously here, we have a lot of the exact same settings that we've seen, especially up here on the home ribbon that we have had in multiple different pieces of software. But the biggest difference right now is that on this one here, this is your entry sheet view, or your data sheet view, I should say. So once you set up this table, this is where you can enter a mass amount of information. In order to go ahead and set this up, if we switch on over here to our design view, and let's just call this, I'm just going to go ahead and call it, I don't know, staff, just for this example here. So right away here, one thing that should stand out here is this little key that is next to this. This is known as a primary key. A primary key inside of a table means that there is one result per record. So for example, something that may apply to you is your driver's license number, your social security number, your student ID number. Those are all unique values to you as an individual. So that's essentially how these IDs can work, is that one of these numbers that go into this field will represent one user, say, within our company. We can change the field name here. So if I wanted to, I could change it to staff ID. And then over here is my data type. Now this one here is auto number, which means that it will automatically put in whatever the next record may be. Now the problem with that is that it is sometimes hard to connect our tables later on using just the auto number. And many organizations will have some type of nomenclature for their ID or user IDs. So for example, here at school, we use last name, 2 of your first name, and then usually like 3 zeros after for students. And that's our nomenclature to create these unique values using your email address. So one way that we can kind of set our own is by changing this data type here to short text. Before I do that, I'm just going to run down some of these additional ones here, right? Short text here is limited up to 255 characters. Long text has, I believe, 10,000 characters as a limitation. So if you're looking to put in long descriptions or some sort of paragraph information, maybe you're writing employee evaluations, this may be the correct data type in order to enter. Numbers, literally just integers. You can set them up as decimals, how many decimal places, whole numbers, long integers. So we can get a little bit more into that one as well. Date and time. So again, if you're looking to put in date of birth for staff, or if you're looking to say like a hire date, something along those lines, date and time works for that. Currency is just that, currency. We've talked about auto number. Yes or no, this is essentially just a checkbox, so it could be something along the lines of, has this employee completed the bloodborne pathogens training that is required at the beginning of the year? If they have, we can go ahead and check this box, so that way we could filter them out later just to figure out which employees haven't done that, and then target those as well. The other ones we're not going to worry about within this course here, but so I'm going to go ahead and choose short text because I'm going to set my own staff ID. And so for this made up company here, maybe we just say in the description here, ID must start with MM or something along those lines. This description isn't visible on the datasheet view, but to anybody that's building into this database would then be able to look at these kind of almost notes in here to see how that you're setting up your table so that they can make those connections. So if we're doing something with staff here, we'd say first name, That's going to be short text. So again, you can see our field size down here. We'll say last name, also short text. We'll put date of birth or DOB, and we can switch that to date and time. Now, with our date and time here, we can go down here to the bottom. If we wanted to look at our format here, we can go ahead and determine which data entry style that we want. For example, here, I may just want the short date, so we can just punch in the days that they, or the day that they were born, and go ahead and put that in. And then I'm going to do phone number, which you may think that this should be a number. However, with these input masks and formatting types that we can do down here in our field properties, we can actually change this so it looks in a specific way. So for example, on phone number here, if I go down here to input mask and then click these 3 buttons to open up my dialog box. Yes, I'll save my table. Here you can see some of this additional information that we can enter to where it's been formatted the way that we want. So we don't want our users to have to enter parentheses and hyphens. We want to ensure that every phone number is entered into the database in the exact same way to remain consistent. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose the phone number here. You can see how this would look. 262-111-2222. We can go ahead and put it in that way there as well, so you can see how it works. I like that. I'm going to want it with the symbols. I want it stored with the symbols, just so it's easier to read, and done. We can add a litany of other fields here for our staff, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. So again, my staff ID is there. We're collecting first name, last name, date of birth, and phone number. We have input masks on phone number, and we have formatted the date of birth to be a short date. We could also, actually one more that I should show you as an example. I'm just going to say state. Now, if you're talking like a large company, you may be looking at having multiple regions. We don't necessarily need to have the whole state. If we want to go ahead and limit the abbreviation, we can actually limit the field size down here to just the abbreviation, so we only have 2 spots available. So we can go ahead and change that field size. And once we have all of these fields set up with the special data types that we want and any restrictions that apply, now we can actually consider going in and entering staff data. So we can switch over to our datasheet view after we save our table. And so again, now we can go in here and we can start to enter some of this information. So if I say staff ID must start with MM01, and we'll just say for these purposes, 2021, or I guess we can select the date here. So that may be one that I need to go back in here and change, just so that way it's formatted as date. So real quick, if I kind of jump back over here, date and time, I can go ahead and put this input mask on there for short date. And save my table, go back over. And so now there you can see I can just go in and do 10/31/1991. And now I can punch those in, and it's already got the input mask and it's formatted the way that we want. Then we can do 262, 262, and enter the phone numbers without needing to do any of the special characters. And then for the state, we can just punch that in. We hit enter and go down to the next line, enter the next employee. Say 11/01/1990. 414-222-3. They could be from Illinois. And this is essentially how we can set up a single table. Now, when we have a large database that has many tables, we can go in under our Create tab here, and we can create another table. There is the table designs, to where you could just jump right into the design view. And that one works as well. So if I just show you here real quick, we just start a blank table. Again, you need to determine and try to understand what you're trying to create here. And if it requires a primary key or whether it doesn't require a primary key, what type of potentially mutual data is being shared in between our tables. So, for example, in this one, maybe this is my sales table. So I could have a sales ID, so it's a unique order number, and we could say that it starts with sale. And then if it's sold to a customer, we could have a customer ID here as well. And then we could have product ordered. Maybe a quantity. And now this quantity probably should be a number value here. And then we could do sale costs. Now this could then be currency. And then maybe we want to include who sold it. And so we could include the staff ID on here as well, so we can connect multiple tables together later when we start talking about relationships. But again, we're trying to figure out what data needs to be collected, how it connects to other tables that we already have. And then once these are all set up here, we need to make sure that the data types will remain the same. Again, if I just go ahead and put sales on here, for the primary key. So my sales ID is going to be unique, so I don't want two of the same sales ID on this table. Now we should be able to save it, go over to sales. We can now switch over. We can say sales 01, customer ID is JK. Where is that? Early pizza. They ordered 10 of them. Cost them $100. MM01 made the sale. Right, so just understanding what data that's being collected. When you come back to the next video here, we'll be talking about forms. And forms are basically just like Google Forms. These are going to be a way that we can actually enter the data and it will populate into our table. It's another way too that we can actually search through our data a little bit easier. So that's going to be the first section of this little Microsoft Access tutorial system. This is just setting up a database and then also creating your data table. So thanks.